Emma Stone had mastered the art of silence. At 42, her face was composed like porcelain, elegant, deliberate, and unreadable. The warm amber of her eyes concealed a history of betrayal so deep that even she could no longer tell where endurance ended and emptiness began. She was the kind of woman whose presence softened rooms, yet whose absence would go unnoticed by those who called her fortunate. Her family's name was Ancient East Coast Wealth, an empire of glass towers and charitable foundations that disguised rot beneath prestige. She never belonged to it fully. Her body, lush and imperfect by their narrow standards, had always been her quiet rebellion. The whispers of society women, the fat heiress, followed her like perfume she could not wash off. Her husband, Marcus Sterling, repeated the insult when he thought she could not hear. That morning, the mansion glimmered in the sterile sunlight of Connecticut luxury. It was Marcus's birthday. Jasmine and roasted coffee perfumed the air, silverware shone like mirrors of judgment. And Emma descended the staircase carrying an envelope, a $100,000 donation to a children's foundation in his name. She had chosen the gesture carefully. Marcus loved nothing more than the illusion of generosity. The dining room was empty, but faint laughter drifted from the parlor. Emma hesitated by the door, an instinct born of too many small humiliations. She listened, and what she heard shattered her stillness. "That fat cow disgusts me, Mom," Marcus was saying, his voice lazy with contempt. "You think I actually enjoy touching her? I care about the money, that's all." His mother's reply was smooth, serpentine. "Then pretend. Endure her until you inherit it all. Afterwards, do what must be done. No one wants to see a man of your stature chained to that body forever." Their laughter, light and intimate, twisted through the air. Emma did not cry. She only stood there until her hands went numb. Then she turned and ascended the stairs, her heartbeat the only sound in the cavernous house. That night, she smiled through dinner. She handed Marcus his Rolex and endured the dry kiss that brushed her cheek. Evelyn praised the wine and suggested Emma try a friend's new diet. They laughed. Emma lifted her glass in polite agreement, her face serene, an expression carved not from peace but from strategy. When midnight fell, she sat in the dim study and wrote in precise, calm script. "Thank you for showing your true colors." Then she opened her laptop. Years of managing her family's wealth had taught her the labyrinth of finance better than any lawyer. By dawn, every traceable dollar had been moved to an anonymous Swiss account. By sunrise, the mansion stood hollow, her car gone, her name already erased from the city's pulse. Marcus woke alone. The note on his pillow made no sense to him. He dismissed it as one of her melodramas, until he learned the house had been sold, the funds redirected, the accounts closed. By then, reporters had already begun circling his campaign like carrion birds. Meanwhile, Emma sat on a city bus heading to South Shore, Chicago. Her new name was Maya Solar. The cracked sidewalks and fogged windows reflected not her fall, but her deliverance. She rented a small room from a suspicious landlady who eyed her manicured hands and perfect posture. "You don't belong here," the woman muttered. "Maybe that's why I came," Emma answered. The room smelled of damp and old dreams. Yet to her, it felt like the first honest space she had occupied in years. She spent her days walking through the wounded neighborhood, children playing barefoot, a man selling ribs from a smoking food truck, a radio bleeding blues into the streetlight haze. One afternoon, a torn sign caught her attention. "Volunteers needed, South Shore Community Clinic." Inside, chaos reigned, peeling paint, broken chairs, the air thick with disinfectant and fatigue. Behind the desk, a tall man argued with a desperate mother about unavailable medicine. "I can't guarantee the drug's real if you buy it outside," he said, voice firm but kind. "But don't stop coming. We'll find a way." When he turned, their eyes met. His name was Elijah Vance. Tired eyes, worn hands, a quiet gravity. "I'm not a doctor," Emma told him, "but I can organize donations, manage inventory. I know how to make things work." He studied her. Something about her composure felt too deliberate, too polished for this crumbling world. Still, he extended his hand. "Welcome, Maya. We need help more than questions." Days bled into weeks. Emma swept, sorted, comforted, and listened. The clinic became her penance and her resurrection. At night, she filled a notebook with trembling words. "I never saw the poor until I became one of them." Then came Lena, 8 years old, eyes enormous and ancient. She hadn't eaten for days. Elijah suspected leukemia but lacked the funds for tests. Emma watched the girl whisper to a broken doll, and something in her cracked open. "You're not from here," said Miss Della, an elderly volunteer who noticed everything. "But you're good for this place. Just remember, when you hide your past, choose who you trust. Some eyes strip you bare, others see what's still alive in you." Elijah's the second kind. Emma smiled faintly. Maya Solar was becoming less of a disguise and more of a salvation. She no longer dreamed of revenge, she dreamed of meaning. At Elijah's urging, the community planned a fair to raise funds. Emma organized it with the precision of a strategist. Her leadership transformed despair into rhythm. The neighborhood began to orbit her calm. "I don't know who you were before," Miss Della told her, "but who you are now suits this place." For a moment, Emma allowed herself the luxury of belonging, but fate was not done with her. One morning, the clinic phone rang. Elijah's expression changed as he listened. "Sterling?" he repeated softly. "Are you sure the file still exists?" Emma froze. Later that day, she overheard him speaking to a nurse. "Evelyn Sterling was my patient once. Her son threatened to ruin me when I refused to falsify prescriptions for her friends. I lost everything because of them." The world tilted. Their pasts had collided long before their paths had crossed. That night, Emma climbed to the roof and let the city's wind tangle her hair. Tears came, not as weakness but release. Below her, South Shore pulsed, raw, imperfect, real. Miles away, Marcus Sterling's campaign unraveled. Donors fled. Headlines whispered of financial fraud and marital betrayal. In his rage, he shattered a crystal glass against his office wall. "Find her!" he ordered his investigator, "before she destroys me." But Emma was not running anymore. She had already begun to build something new, an abandoned warehouse she'd secretly purchased under her false name. There, she envisioned a foundation for women like her, survivors of cruelty disguised as love. One evening, as they worked in the dust and silence, Elijah spoke. "I lost my wife because of private care. They killed her, then buried the mistake under money." Emma met his gaze. "Then let's build a place where money doesn't decide who deserves to live." And in that dim light, surrounded by decay and resolve, Emma Stone ceased to be the woman who once smiled for photographs beside powerful men. She became something rarer, a woman reborn from ruin, unowned, unafraid. The world would call her vanished, but she knew the truth. She hadn't disappeared, she had awakened.